He has a 1-1 count. That one's struck high. Left side. That one's going. That's out of here off the rails. You have to be kidding me. Fireworks. Here you go.
Welcome in, everybody, to High and Tight. My name is Cade Nissen. I'm joining Andrew Brown today for his show, High and Tight. Andrew, we are less than 2 months from the regular season. I'm pumped. Are you pumped?
Oh, man, I'm jacked. I am ecstatic beyond belief, and I'm ready to get this going. I want to be doing baseball right now. We've had activities, events, but it's nothing like the real thing. Let's get going.
I couldn't agree more.
And so what I think ultimately is the best way to try and go through with this, combat the fact that we're still several months away. Love to go through and just dive into some teams that get some excitedness about some teams, get and look at it. Kind of a lot to cover here, Cade, when it comes to what we've got going on. Of course, not only are we going to go through some sleeper teams, we're going to revisit that a bit here and kind of give you some teams that you should have an eye on beyond some of the teams that we've already mentioned. And, of course, we always love games. We always love games. We'll do some game show look here. We'll go ahead and give another, I'd say, sneak preview of what some of the one class. We'll do a spin wheel and we'll see what that lands on. And if whatever class, whatever pick, we'll go ahead and give you that mark and that team. And of course, we'll look back at all of the 4 champions. Give our confidence votes. Who has the best chance of repeating, or in some instances, back to back, or even back to back. So we'll see how that goes and see how that pans out. And again, a lot in store for you. And again, and the show that's about baseball in Iowa, from high school to the pros. And, of course, brought to you in part by the great folks at Victory Mounds, which, again, check them out today, Russian-Eggett and Company. They know the equipment. They know fields. That's what they do. So if you want the best, check them out today, victorymounds.com. All right, so, Cade, what do you think first here? I mean, got a lot on the docket, and certainly, again, this just adds to the excitement that we're getting so close, and we're nearing. We've already got guys going up and ready to go. So how are we going to kick things off here?
Andrew, I love talking the sleeper teams, and for those who don't know, our 1 through 16 for all classes are on Rockfin right now. They've been out for a few weeks now. That is the number one way you can really support IA baseball, is going over there and subscribing. We're going to be pushing more and more content than ever on there this summer. I'm super pumped. But I love talking about these sleeper teams. I love taking these stabs in the dark on the teams that maybe our rankers – I'm not saying anything bad about our rankers, because our rankers do an incredible job. But there's always those teams that no one's expecting that come out of nowhere, and they go on these magical runs. I love trying to take a stab at these teams that are kind of flying under the radar right now, and really it'll be super fun to come back to this after the season or mid-season and kind of see, wow, Andrew nailed that one. Oh, okay, totally missed on that. It's so fun taking a stab at these. So Andrew, I want to start with some sleeper teams that you've got.
All right. Well, my sleeper teams, as we look at it, man, I will start in 1A for me.
Okay.
And for me, I look at sleeper teams as teams that were kind of either around 500 below, or just kind of coming out of the dark, or even teams that did well but just didn't get the big wins. And I feel like Akron Westfield out of 1A is that team for me, because ultimately they return their top 4 out of 5 hit leaders. This was a team that returns 86% of their strikeout total. And a guy to know from there is Ashton McCulley, 72 strikeouts in a War Eagle conference that had two teams in the last couple of years routinely make the state tournament. Of course, we know Galen Catholic, and of course the champs from last year in Rems and St. Mary's. And so when you have that going on, it's working. This team knows how to hit the ball, and when they did, batting average of balls in play, 378 last year. And that's why they had 9+ dominant wins on the year. So Akron Westfield is my team in that 1A. And you want to go 1A, or you want me to just go through it all?
Yeah, let's alternate here. I'll go 1A too while we're on the topic. You said you like picking your teams like this that are around the 500 mark last year. I got my team. My team was 21-5 last year. Didn't make the state tournament, but they're nowhere to be seen on our preseason rankings, and I think they maybe could be snuck in there somewhere. And it is none other than the Hillcrest Academy Ravens. Now, people forget we talk a lot about Burlington Notre Dame and the Nikes and how young they are and how high hopes they have for this year. This Hillcrest team was one run away from beating them in that sub-state game. I believe they got walked off on. It was like a 3-2 game. From what I heard, it was an incredible game. This Hillcrest team, here's a stat for you, Andrew. Hillcrest hadn't had 20 wins in a season since 2008. This team last year was historic in terms of Hillcrest Academy. Again, 21-5, a great year. They lose some seniors. That's not ideal, but they return some guys that I really, really like, and I think the momentum's just going to be there. Seth Hours is the name to know. He was a sophomore last year. An ERA of .67 and a WHIP of .71. Those are microscopic. He's going to go out there, win another 6, 7, 8 games for them, I could assume. You got Phoenix Anderson as a good two. They lose probably half their lineup, but they return a core of guys who were all underclassmen last year. Liam Schrock, Seth Hours, as I mentioned. Rowan Miller was a freshman last year who contributed. They're going to need some new guys to step up, but I got to talk about Hillcrest Academy because of their great year last year and how historic they were in their program and where they're going this year. I think that they could be slept on a little bit.
Yeah, I love your point there. I love it. This is a team that I think, man, just historically hasn't been as dominant, and you got to give props to where props is due. I love that. Absolutely love that. Great mark there. You ready to hit on 2A now?
Yes, I am. You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead and give me your best 2A.
All right, let me pull up the logo while I go look. It is PCM. This team was right around that 500 mark. 13-15 last year. I was just kind of scrolling around through the 2A. I got to say 2A is probably the one that I know the least amount. But this team gave Pleasantville a run in the postseason. We've talked about Pleasantville, how young and youthful they are. Pleasantville, I believe, walked them off. So both teams I picked so far have been walked off in the postseason. But I like what they bring back. Their two top hitters this year are going to be seniors. They were juniors last year. Nick Farber, Easton Webb. I love it when your top offensive guys are seniors and leading the way. That just bodes well and can only mean good things. They return their top 2 innings guys, a guy in Trevor Van Dyke and Nick Farber, both significant innings pitched, very respectable ERA, both punched out over 55 guys. PCM, I got to say, like I said, Class 2A is definitely the class I probably know the least amount, but from what I see, I like PCM, and they're not getting any pub in the offseason, so I'm going to give them some right now.
Hey, rightfully so. They deserve it. When you have a good squad, sometimes record is the only thing people see. And I'm right there with you on that. I love PCM. Great coaching staff. It's you look at it and they hit their stride right at the right time, and I love it. And so far, you have nailed it. 2 for 2 on getting walked off. So you are finding them all. You're finding them with glory.
That's my criteria. That's my criteria right now.
There you go. Well, for me, a little bit different. I do have to give a shout out. Pella Christian wasn't my initial. I just want to say one thing about him. You mentioned, our rankers do a good job, and our ranker 2A had Pella Christian in the top 15 for the entire season, even though others had doubts and vocalized, and we saw that on comments. Yet they made it. They had the big upset win over Van Meter, and they walked them off. So they walked off Van Meter. We're in a theme here into the state tournament. And so it was, a heck of a coaching staff, by the way. Got to meet them at the coaches clinic, but they're a prime example of that. But the team that really stood out to me is a team that had some really big wins this last year, and that's Monticello. And we saw Monticello over the last couple of years even have some big wins against 3A opponents, such as Norwalk this past year, West Delaware. And that's where I'm going to focus this with them, because they had big wins over North Lynn, Lisbon, who went to the state title game. Of course, Anamosa, who has been a really strong team out of that conference as well. And this is a team that, they return 7 out of 8 of their top hitters. So that depth piece is there. You always worry about that depth piece. They have that offensively, and defensively, they've got that as well. So they've got the chance to really go far with that. And, again, big wins, another positive run differential. And again, between them and Pella Christian, who, again, Pella Christian top adjusted FIP in 2A. I'll get to that later. But those are kind of those are my kind of 2A guys, but Monticello is really that dark horse that I think not many people have looked at, but really should.
I like it. Class 3A, this team doesn't fit my criteria, shockingly. But to make up for it, I was at this team's postseason game where their season did end. It is the Pella Dutch. This team has 20-plus wins in 3 straight years. I believe our Class 3A ranker had them as an honorable mention preseason, which I think is a good fit because they do lose a good senior class. But what they return is going to be a trio of, or even more than a trio of, then sophomores, now juniors, and Isaiah Kettler, Anderson Skirm, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, and Nathan Carey, who really had huge roles offensively. I say Isaiah Kettler is probably the big name. He had 361 last year, a team leader in a lot of categories. Again, this team had no juniors from what I'm seeing on their roster hardly last year, so it's going to be still a pretty young team, and even this team's going to return a lot. Pitching wise, Nathan Carey is gonna be a big role player. Another sophomore last year, Nathan Vandaloon stepped up in a big way. They lose their top innings guy in Caleb Stewart, but like I said, no juniors last year, all sophomores and freshmen. Besides the graduating class, and I just like what they bring to the table. They finished third in the Little Hawkeye last year, and that's a tough conference, as you know. And one thing I always look for, I found myself doing this a lot. And when scouting these teams, is looking at the catcher and bringing a catcher back. I think that's such an underrated thing because we all know how that backstop is just such a huge security blanket, holding down runners, making sure bases aren't just being stolen everywhere. And they return one. Anderson Skirm, like I said, he threw out 15 guys of 38 last year. That's a really, really solid number, really respectable. And you can assume with another offseason of work, he's going to be throwing out guys, and guys are going to be running on him less. So Pella, I'm going with them as my Class 3A team for this week that you got to kind of keep an eye on.
And, you mentioned Isaiah Kettler, top outfield velocity in the preseason All-State Showcase for PBR this past weekend. So he has got the arm. And I'm with you there. I like them. Pella is, Pella has a schedule that they can easily vault themselves up real high this year. For me, I'm going to, as I look at it, man, I'll give my team my main pick here, and that's Mount Vernon. And this is a team, now don't get fooled by their well under 500 record. Don't get fooled by that. I will say that because you take a look at who at their postseason mark. West Delaware, strong team. Right out of the gates, what does Mount Vernon do? Mount Vernon takes them down for a big win. And then you look at all the way. Now, they were very close on making the state tournament themselves as they went up against Western Dubuque to try and make their way into the state tournament. And you look at that matchup, Western Dubuque had outscored opponents in the postseason total 48-13. No other team in the postseason came within one run of Western Dubuque.
Yeah.
Mount Vernon was the only team to do that. And they were one of the only teams to do that, one of just 10 across the entire season against Western Dubuque. Mount Vernon returns over 66% of their RBIs from last year. They, of course, you look at that, pitching is where they might have some question marks, but ultimately, you look at it and say, man, this team was batting .253, but hey, when they put the ball in play, they did great. When they batting average of balls in play, .306 last year. So this was a team that is, again, lost just 3 seniors So again, most of their offensive production and pitching production returns, and that's just really scary. And so they're in a conference, the WALMAC, which grooms teams to be very competitive, or you just get pummeled. But so this is a team that, again, don't look at the record, because they made a big run last year and came very short. But I'll also, as a side note, give it just a small shout out to Central DeWitt. Had the top batting average in balls in play last year at 396, and they have pop. Three guys in the top 10 of hits last year, third in the state in doubles. So they just weren't on my list here because they had a very strong season overall.
Yeah.
So it's not like, for my criteria anyway, didn't run into that. And of course, they fell short as well. But that's a team, Central DeWitt, that's going to make a big jump. So make sure to stay tuned up.
I've been working on those off-season graphics for team stats and individual stats, and Central DeWitt, they're stat fillers. It feels like they're at the top 10 of like dang near every statistical category there is, especially offensively. That team knows how to hit the ball. Moving on to 4A though, I'll give you mine. I tell you what, I almost went with Sioux City North. I was putting together those innings pitched returners, and man, they returned everybody. I think it was over 99% of their innings pitched guys are back. That's just incredible. I know they don't get talked about much because they're way out on the edge and they don't play those marquee games like everyone else does. But Sioux City North, I wanted to give a shout out to them before I give my real pick here. I think Sioux City North is going to be fun to watch with Aiden Shrunk and company. But my pick finished dead last in the CIML last year. But I like what they bring back, and it's Urbandale. It's a team that's always competing, and like I said, they've got some pieces. Brock Moore, I always like picking teams that bring the catchers back, and Brock Moore was solid behind the dish, threw out 14 guys, and they're kind of their leader offensively. It looks like this year Trey Hicklin was a sophomore last year. He hit right around 300. He's back. 4 of their top 5 guys, 4 of their top 5 hits leaders, I should say, are back this year. They lose the big name in Sam Harris, but the team was always competitive, went up to the sub-state final, fell to Southeast Polk, obviously. But again, they return a good chunk of their innings guys. 2 of their top 4 are back. Jacob Barnes and Michael Maher are going to be looking to eating more innings. And looking at Urbandale's pitching log, man, they throw a ton of guys. When I was filling out the returning innings pitch guys, Urbandale took me 20 minutes alone because they just throw so many. And a lot of them are back. So they're going to have a ton of variety this year. I'm looking for them to compete a little more. They were right around the 500 mark last year. Urbandale was. So I'm going to go with them as my kind of team to possibly look out for in 2024.
Oh man, and what's not to love? Coach Evans is absolutely phenomenal when he puts things together. His combinations are absolutely great baseball mind. For me, I'm going to see you there, and I'm going to see your shout out in Sioux City, but I'm going to go all the way on the other side of the state. I'm going to flip the reverse and go Davenport North. Now, this is a team that I have been high on, and for several reasons here. This was a team last year that had offense for days and offense to keep with everybody. The problem was the errors really hit them last year at the wrong points. Pitching just wasn't up to that par. So you'd see kind of lopsided scores or even really offensive shootouts that they just lost. So this is a team, you look back at it, I mean, when they hit the ball, they hit it all over. I talked to some rival coaches, and they said this is one of the teams that hits the hardest out of any team in the conference, in the MAC. And this is a team last year, 363 when they hit the ball. When they put it in play, they had a lot of good things happen. 15 home runs, 12 of which returned from guys like Bryce Pauly, Nolan Slider, guys who are now up there nationally in PBR and perfect game rankings. And they do not lose out. They do not lose a single pitcher that tallied 20 plus innings last year, which really, when you think about their Achilles heel, you could go to the pitching, and that's just experience they get back now. So now all that comes through, Bryce Pauly being in that mix as well. And you want a team that's holistic, and you look at guys, they bring back two of their top 5 stolen base earners, in underclassmen, Mason Bogan, Brendan Bowe, both, I believe, sophomores last year, 13 stolen bases apiece. So this is a team. This is a team that, if you get the combination of bringing back Clayton Balcoma, the Brazilian bomber, into that mix, not only do you have a team that's dangerous now, but you just elevate that with him as he's going to bring in runs. So this is a team that's going to be very scary to look out for.
I like it. I like all of our picks, Andrew. I think all of our
Yeah.
picks are money.
I think spot on. I'm getting all those.
Are we ready to give out some free rankings?
Yes, let's go ahead and we'll rock that here. Now, what we're gonna do here, ladies and gentlemen, just like Kate had mentioned, we're last time we did this, we're gonna go to the class, and then we're gonna go spin the wheel for the number here. And of course, make sure that get screen shared everything here.
So they know rolling. These are our preseason team rankings, exclusively on Rockfin. So if you see the wheel spin and you see the team name and you're like, man, I wonder what the rest of the rankings look like, you can always head over to Rockfin and check the full top 16 out. We're just kind of trying to tease you guys a little bit and get you guys excited for the season like we are. So yeah, this is our preseason team rankings for all classes. Andrew, once you share your screen, I should be ready.
All right, so I think we're all set. If you're ready,
All right, I got it.
This is always a fun thing. All right,
yep, I think I'm good.
All right, here we go. Let's hit it, and I think there's some sound with this. That's pretty cool. I always like a little sound. Here we go. Oh man, what are we looking at? Oh man,
again. Yeah.
Class 4A is okay. So now that's okay. So now let's go ahead and let's bump on over to. Let's try this again here. I'll make sure I get there. We'll bump on over.
All right.
Yeah, I love the technology. All right.
Yeah, it's my first time doing it, so we're getting through it.
It works. I think last time we ended up in the middle.
Yeah, we got to make sure we don't get the same team. I'll pull up the. Yeah, what are the odds?
Yeah, classes. All right, here we go.
Can't be number 6. Anything but 6.
Yeah, I'm looking at 6 and below. Let's go. All right.
Okay.
All right.
We got. It's a fun one.
I don't think we had 8 last time.
Nope. This is a fun one. You right? You got it?
Yeah. Okay. So who again, I think we didn't get 8 last time. Who's number 8 on our list?
Number 8 in our class 4A preseason team rankings, exclusively on Rockfin, is none other than the Ottumwa Bulldogs.
Oh,
29 wins last year. 29 wins. They won a postseason game. They beat Hawkeyes. I was there. Suffered a loss to Ankeny in the second round, 13-0. But the story, I think, with Ottumwa, Andrew, has got to be the young star, right? Yeah. That's the big one. But besides him, they return a ton. Looking at it,
they do. I mean, Long being one of those, the guys that. It's a cohesive group, man. I really love what they bring to the table. And this is a team that's kind of been building, right?
Yep.
Obviously, we saw, when the state tournament first hit Dwayne Banks Field, how that was a strong Ottumwa team there. And gosh, I gotta think that there's a lot of similarities to what you see and what you get out of this team. It's very fun to watch this team. And again, Tucker Long, just being a freshman, I believe already committed collegiately, or if I'm not mistaken, or at least he's on radars. I don't want to go ahead and say officially without that in front of me, but gosh, this is a team that you got a lot of depth that's now going to be in the starting limelight. So that is really cool to see.
Yeah, and I think about, Tucker was obviously a force in the box. He hit 512, sorry. He was a force in the mound, but what he gets now this year, getting out of his freshman year, is the pitch count. I think that's huge. That pitch count, you can only hit 90, I think, as a freshman. Now you can go the full 110, because when I was there for his start against Hawkeyes, he was rolling, but it's hard to pitch a full game in 90 or less pitches, especially when you're punching out guys like he is. So now he's getting another 20 pitches. He's going to be able to go extra 1-2 innings each time. They return a guy in Matthew Mitchell, who was a sophomore last year, who had a very good year, 35 innings, 3.6 ERA. Besides that, they graduated a lot of pitchers, but they still bring plenty of guys back. I see Javen Rominger and Andrew Evans both through double-digit innings. Both are back. And in the lineup, I mean, Dalton Dowd, he hit 388. Javen Rominger, like we just talked about on the mound, he hit 352. So they graduate a good class, but they return a ton. So I think right where they're at, I think number 8's a pretty good spot for them, especially with what they lost and what's returning. But I mean, the story with Ottumwa is going to be following the story of Tucker Long and seeing how he can produce in year 2 at the high school level.
And plus, not only that, they bring back 4 of their guys who had 10 plus stolen bases last year.
Yeah.
So they're going to put the pressure on. And I love your point. How many times have we seen, especially state tournament times, where you get pitchers, freshmen who dazzle, and then they just have to get even mid batter have to be taken out.
Yeah.
That's just it gets frustrating as fans of the game too.
Yeah. I totally understand the rule, but for those kids like Tucker who just are on a different level, it's hindering. But now this year he's free. He's going to be able to go the full 110. Yeah. So he's going to put up some crazy numbers this year. Oh
yeah. No doubt about that. I can't wait. Gosh, like this, we got to giddy up and get going with this season already.
We're getting there. Let's see. Are you able to see my screen for the color game? Or are you not? You might have to go to. I sent them in the email. You might have to download the colors and open them individually. We'll do that.
Yeah, I'll probably, and that's fine. I like email. Email's pretty good.
Let me know when you open color 1. I'll put it on the screen for the viewers to see. But here's our game. We did it one time. Andrew, I picked a logo. We're gonna do the primary colors, and he's gonna see if he can guess it and how long it's gonna take him. So I'll put color 1 up on the screen right now. So viewers at home, be thinking, what school in Iowa do you have this as? He's thinking.
Gosh.
Every time you miss, I'll give you a hint.
All right, and from the email, it's going left to right, correct? Or right to left?
They're named color 1, color 2, color 3.
All right, yeah. All right, yep. Oh gosh, that kind of dark that color right there. First thought, I mean, something like, I know it's not Urbandale, but that's the kind of Urbandale color, that blue that I think of, and It's not there. And so I want to say something like that, but that silver, that like I don't know. It's kind of like a dark color. I'm gonna go with Urbandale and get it wrong.
It is not Urbandale. I'll show color 2. You can pull up color 2. Your hint is they are preseason ranked. They're preseason ranked. I'll give you the class. I'll give you the class next if you miss this one. But this team is preseason ranked.
All right. So, given the fact that it's that gray type, there's that to me. I thought instantly of going anywhere between I can't get lost in Ankeny Centennial. I got to get out of that bunch. I want to make sure that I'm hitting my mark when it comes to that. Okay. This is challenging. Hopefully everyone out there watching this, hopefully you're not yelling at the screen too badly right now.
It's so hard to pick a team that's like not red, black, not like blue, black, like something that with a school that has somewhat unique colors. And I'd say this school, once you're going to be like, they're pretty unique in their colors. So what's your guess number 2?
I'm going to have to go with Centennial on this one.
Is not Ankeny Centennial. Go ahead and pull up color 3. Color 3 is not going to help you too much, though. Your hint is they are class 3A ranked.
Class 3A. All right. So if I'm looking, okay. So you get that. It for me, it's basically white, or kind of like
This is
You know,
more
it's
this is more of an accent. This isn't a primary. It's just kind of it's not really doing too much for you.
no, it's kind of, for me, this is like a definitely a side color. Oh boy, I'm trying to think here. I want to try at first that combo for me. I thought about saying something like Lewis Central. Um, I wanted to go with Lewis, but you know, that's that kind of combination. Of course, you get a little bit that with, gosh, and a little bit Sergeant Bluff with kind of that yellow color. Um, but I am going to go with, oh boy, that blue is just knocking me off. I'm going to go with Lewis Central.
You got it. You got
Oh,
it.
no way.
That's a
Yeah.
tough one. That's a tough one. That
All
blue,
right.
the blue is kind of tough.
Oh man, I honestly, I was gonna, for me, I thought, man, Centennial, or
Yeah.
that Centennial with the gray,
Well,
and then when you
LC breaks out the baby blue sometimes too as an accent. So I didn't know if I should throw that in because it's not on
oh,
their
if you,
logos. So they break out that light blue. I think that would have really pushed it, but it
yeah,
wasn't on any of their
that was,
logos, so I couldn't yeah. So there you go. That wasn't too bad. That's tough. That's tough.
that was better than last time for
Yeah.
me. I actually correctly guessed it at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough game. You did well. You talked through it and figured it out.
Hey, I'll try. Hey, I'll give them my best effort any day. That was probably one of the hardest ones. You get when you get more contrast in there, it certainly is tough.
Yeah. Well, speaking of tough things to figure out, Andrew, our next segment had me in a doozy. I think I texted you, you texted me the other day, and we
Yeah.
said, let's rank the 4 state champs from last year in order of how confident we are that they win it again. So 1 through 4, 1 being I'm the most confident this team repeats. Who did you have as your most confident team to repeat?
All right, most confident
We'll see.
team.
We've never checked this, so we don't even know. We don't know if we match or not.
Yeah, this will be a fun one.
I'm
For me,
curious.
I go by, this is a team that over the last 4 years, I've said, man, they're not going to be as good next year. They're not going to be as good next year. And from now on, until they are done with the season and not in the state tournament, I am never going to count them out as number one, and that's Western Dubuque.
That's who I had.
I mean, for me, it's,
Yeah.
you look at it, they had 2 guys ranked top 4 in the class in RBIs last season, in Hunter Quagliano and Brett Harris, the Ole Miss commit.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they bring back them. Jake Goodman was an all-stater. Tanner Anderson returns as well. I mean, this team led in almost every category offensively and defensively last year in 3A, and they returned the bulk of that. You know, I just remember their first titles, when they had guys like Garrett Kadoff and Brent Van Tiger behind the dish. And I thought, man, you lose 2 guys like that, I don't think you can come back and win one. And they just come back and win one anyway on me. So I cannot say that they're not my top until they prove me that they're not at the top.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Another thing I factored into, I was thinking of who they could be facing. I was consistently thinking about that. And when you think of Class 3A, I think the matchup we're all expecting at this point in the year is a rematch with North Polk and Western Dubuque. And I remember last year, I'm thinking North Polk's 1-2 could shut down anybody, and Western Dubuque was very successful against Reese Ragi, I think is how we figured out we pronounced it, and he's a heck of a pitcher. So I thought Western Dubuque was hands down my number 1 pick here. So I'm glad we aligned. How about your number 2?
All right, for number 2, this is again the case of until you prove me wrong, you can't. And I'm going to go back to the guy who won it for this team, Adam Keiko and company with Johnston. I'm going to rock the big hat just for them here. I'm going to rock the big hat when I say Johnston on this one, because there's no doubt that each of the past year, so many years, I mean, they have constantly been in the state tournament, and they have constantly been there. And even if they get there and don't win it, I mean, I just, they have to not win it. and it has to be definitive for me to say, nah, Johnston can't. But the only reason they're second is because, the pitching, which
Yep.
again, they always get new guys coming up through the ranks anyway. So they lose a little bit, and they've lost some guys that were pretty big hitters, but ultimately they don't lose a ton in the grand scheme, and they just do the next guy up mentality. So there's no way I can't pick Johnston here.
Andrew, we are on the exact same wavelength. I was afraid this was going to just go haywire and we were just going to have totally different top fours. But we are on the money. I totally agree with you. The lineup, I mean, say what you want about the pitching. The pitching is definitely going to be the huge question mark and what we're looking out for and who's going to step up. Rafe McConnell and company. Will Nuss is probably going to eat more innings. But the lineup is just going to be lethal. I mean, Whedon, Keiko, Nuss, Kemmer, Lundholm. I mean, they lose a few guys, but in terms of a Class 4A state championship team, they return a ton. They're probably going to be putting up tons of runs. Yeah, I think Johnson was my number 2 pick, pretty hands down at this point. Western Dubuque, Johnson, I was pretty confident in those two. What about number 3? Let's see if we can keep this going.
All right, for number 3, man, I think this is where we may wary just a bit. For me, Beckman Catholic, this is a team that, year one in a new conference, a new coach, but I had a lot of question marks with them. And in the end, I do like, I guess I got to say, I like them a lot. And I know that ultimately you lose some guys, and man, they do lose some really key pieces, but I like the setup there, and they got some young guys in there that I've heard a lot of good stuff about. And I'm really liking the setup that they have. I mean, that Matthew Florence, I believe, is who I got here. He's a guy that comes in with 27 hits, and a lot of sophomores got time in there. Even if at little bits of time, they got him there. And in the end, Schmidt and company on the mound, they've got some time. Drew there as well, 26 innings. So yes, Offerman and company are gone.
Yeah.
But this is a team that I could easily see kind of getting back, and especially if they get the right draws, I can see them making it right back to the title game.
We're money right now.
No way.
This is incredible. Woo-hoo! Yeah, I mean, we're thinking the same way. They lose one half of Luke Squared and Luke Sigworth and Luke Shields, who both had 47 hits and were incredible. So they bring Sigworth back, so he's going to be a producer. They return a lot in the lineup. I mean, it's kind of like Johnston. Return a lot in the lineup. Return a good amount in the lineup, and the pitching is going to be the real question. Like you said, they got Thier to kind of lead the way. He had a really solid year. He's going to be eating a lot more innings. The only reason I dropped Beckman Catholic to 3 instead of 2 was because of who I think could win it all in 2A, and that's Underwood. Underwood is scary. Yeah. They return a ton. So if I'm being honest, the only reason Beckman Catholic was number 3 was because of Underwood and all that they bring back. So that was my reasoning. Beckman Catholic, incredible program, incredible run last year, beating Underwood in the finals, and they're going to look to go back to back and do it again. So that leaves just one school. Andrew, well, go ahead and give me your analysis.
Hey, I love Remsen St. Mary's, man. I love this team because they've been so close so many years, and they've gotten there. But they did it this year with perhaps the strongest class, not of just baseball, but any sport. And it was dubbed one of the best classes that this program, let alone school, has had in a long time, if not ever. They miss out 7 of their top 11 players who had 25 or more games under their belts have graduated.
Yep.
Part of that massive senior class. And that's the only question marks, because once you get into 1A and 2A, you get a big senior class and then you graduate them. There's not a lot of instances where you see 1A, 2A teams bounce back as well. And it's just frankly because of numbers, right? And I will say that St. Mary's is a perennial power, but what you see in 1A is you got, like you were saying, like you say about Underwood. I mean, 1A, honestly has a lot of teams that have a lot of push that
Mhm.
could end up coming back. Lisbon being one of them. St. Ansgar talked about as well. Those two teams. I mean, those are just two in particular. I don't want to get too far. Linville Sully is a team that I'm look. So there's ultimately enough teams that have made the state tournament that I feel have enough push to get there.
Yeah.
Galen Catholic being one of those teams as well. Again, Rems War Eagle Conference team, but uh, that's where I get them. Ultimately, the big push for me to go to 4 is that because of the amount of talent, and again, the talent that has been there since freshman year. Okay,
Yeah.
like eighth grade year, right? These guys had been there, this class, since the eighth grade year, producing at the varsity level, and it's really hard to replace all of that in just 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the same page here, and I hope this doesn't come as a slight to Remsen because it isn't at all. This is a tough thing to rank these 4 incredible teams 1 through 4. But I can't help but just feel this deja vu feeling from when I was covering football, and it was the same story. Remsen coming off a dominant title run, losing just about every single starter. Can they find those guys to bounce back? And they were great all year long in football, top 5 consistently. Just obviously couldn't get it done. So Remsen at 4 here, I think it is the play. I mean, that 1A state title game last year, Remsen and Lisbon, was 2 teams that were loaded on seniors. So that
Yes.
we're really opening up the field here in Class 1A. And if it is going to be Remsen and Lisbon again competing for it, it's going to be new guys coming in and contributing, and that's what's going to be fun. Is you got those guys, the teams coming back with the targets on their back, but it's going to be with new guys doing the job on the diamond. So that's what's going to make it fun. The bright spot for Remsen, though, I mean, is Colin Homan. I mean, he was incredible all year last year, 8-0, 50 innings, a ERA of .41. Wow, that's incredible. A whip of .81. So you're bringing him back, and you know he's going to go out there and produce for you. Hunter Pick, only 18 innings last year, but he had an ERA lower than Homan. So you got a potential 1-2 there, and you know Remsen's going to bring guys back that produce. So no slight here that they're preseason ranked very, very high. I'm not going to say where they're preseason ranked because I don't want to give too much away, but they're preseason ranked very, very high and for good reason. But in this case, we've got them at number 4 in our chance to repeat. But that was fun, Andrew. That was a fun game. That was tough, and we didn't cheat. We didn't look at each other's. No, that was totally raw, and that was pretty good. We were thinking on the exact same wavelength there.
Yeah, and it was really cool that I love doing those kind of blind games. You just don't know, kind of off the cuff. And again, thoughts anybody has on it, let us know.
Yeah,
Hit us
rank
up
them in
on
the comments.
Yeah, we'd love to go ahead and even next show probably if we get enough comments. I mean, look through those comments, answer them, and see what's what for you.
Yeah,
because that's kind of where it's at. Making this happen and all that.
I liked your idea of next week doing the runner-ups and the runner-ups chances to win it next year. I think we gotta introduce that next week because that could be fun and that could be pretty tough too.
Yeah, and gosh, it's every time once you get into there because last year, and you think about this last thing here, the thing about last year, especially in 2A, but you had it all over the board, is you had just upsets. You had big upsets going in there. So you already talked about 2 teams, the surprise teams. There's a lot of teams that just didn't make it in there that got upended. How will a Van Meter shake up what 2A has to offer? That's where also you look at Van Meter's a perennial power.
Ankeny Centennial.
Mid Prairie, and it's all those guys like Ankeny Centennial there, of course, Cedar Rapids Prairie.
Yeah.
All those teams that just didn't make it in, that just got kind of upended there late. Of course, Carlisle doing making their big run. You always have a team like that gets in there, like Spencer and so forth. But so we didn't see all the blue bloods that we thought would get in there, of course, from the start of the season, our rankings and so forth. But man, that's what makes this interesting and extremely hard because there are a lot of teams that finished high and got in and just ultimately year to year, it changes so drastically different.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk this talk, we can talk predictions, sleeper teams, but at the end of the day, we could be totally wrong. We could not hit a single thing. Our rankings could be upside down, but that's just what makes it fun, and that's what makes this sport so improbable. And you never know, because you go out there and you play the game for one reason and one reason only, and that's just because literally anything can happen.
That's right. Yeah, just like Edward said, you play to win the game.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
But
That's a good stopping point though, Andrew. I think we got a lot done. I think we should keep this going. Wrestling is slowing down more and more for me, making myself more and more available. If you're watching this show and you're at this point, leave a comment. What do you want us to rank? What do you want us to talk about next week? We want to talk about what you guys want to see. So that's at the forefront. Don't be afraid to comment. Don't be afraid to leave your thoughts and opinions. But that was a great show. That was a ton of fun, Andrew. And anything else you got?
Just make sure to go ahead and give a shout out to another shout out to Victory Mountains for helping to put this on, and then of course anybody out there, players of the week of the games, we want those. So just think about that now. Our hitting approach player of the games, and so it's really fun. I urge you to check out hittingapproach.com. Great app, cost effective. All coaches, check it out. There's my shameless plug for that. But it's just check it out there. We love interaction, especially during the season, because we're good, but we can't get to all the games. And so some of the best people who see each game are the parents and everybody who's there. So the regulars at games, you are absolutely phenomenal people. Thank you for doing what you do, taking your kids there. And last thing, please, everybody, thank a coach, thank an umpire, because without those two entities, your kids would not get to play baseball in the state of Iowa. And those two groups give up a lot of their time to make this sport exactly as great as it is. So give kudos to them, and of course kudos to Mr. Pomeroy if you're out there watching.
100%. We'll see you guys next week.